Okay, I'm going to resume with our drilling fluid, more or less where we left off in the last video. I want you to notice this check button over here, and I'm going to make a very small change in the barium sulfate concentration, or in the recipe, I guess. Make it 350.1 pounds instead of 350, and click away from it. And if you notice, the check button has now a frame around it. This is just to let you know that there's some information or diagnostics available from that operation. Just tells you that an ingredient was updated, batch size about the same. There's some cost changes as well. And then it loses the frame because we looked at the things it wanted to tell us about, but there's still some general diagnostics which can come up. There are action items which relate to this thermometer progress bar down here in the lower left on the form, and it also mentions that there are no minimum and maximum concentrations. We calculated actual concentrations, but not the range from minimum to maximum, which is what you would want on a safety data sheet. So if you created in a safety data sheet from this batch, it might be a good idea to have those so you're not revealing your actual concentrations. But it's not relevant, or it's not important if you're just doing the batch. So I say OK to that. And just to show you what happens when you click on the thermometer, the Paris thermometer, it just gives you a list of the things that are either not filled in or might be desirable. So I'm just going to click on one just to show you, let's say, the date of completion for the batch. I'll double click and it takes you to that field so you can enter it. Okay, another interesting thing about the program is that you can vary things to see what their effects are. If you're, let's say, making a custom in a product that varies with the customer or the application, you might do a little experiment where you vary a couple of ingredients to see what the effect is on the product properties. So I'm going to right click here on diesel fuel and set it as solvent. What that means is when I click on another item and vary it using this thermometer that appears over here on the right, the diesel fuel will go down when this product, when the barium sulfate, goes up. So right now the barium sulfate is at like 23% or 24%. Let's scroll over here. So you see it's 23.7%, and the diesel fuel's at 42%. Also notice down at the bottom of the physical column here, there's a calculated density, so about 12 pounds per gallon based on these ingredients, the amount, and the densities of the ingredients. Okay, but right now, we still have to keep 100% as the total, for the actual concentration. So let me vary this, since it's about at 24 right now. Let's make it 35. So what happens, it's going to give me a warning because I'm varying the original batch, and because of the nature of calculations on real numbers, out at 9 or 10 digits, we'll never quite get back to exactly the same spot that we were at. It's just warning because it's an original batch, but I'm not concerned because I'm going to cancel these changes anyway by canceling the entry form when we're finished. So I'll just say OK to vary it. And now, if you look, the weight, or the density, is now 14. It was 12. So by raising the barium concentration, we increased the density of the material, the product. Let me bring it up to 50%. So now it's 19 instead of 12 pounds per gallon. And you'll notice by increasing it to 50, we went down in the diesel fuel to about 14%. Let me try moving it up to 100. It's not going to let me. It says that the maximum of these two ingredients is 66%. So if we set diesel fuel to 0, we can only get up to 66% with these two ingredients. So it sets it back so that it's at 66%, and the diesel fuel is essentially 0. And what we get is that's about the highest we can go by varying diesel fuel and barium sulfate. It's about 28, 29 pounds per gallon is the heaviest. We could vary some other ingredient as well, some other pair of ingredients, but that's what we get with the barium and the diesel fuel. So I'm going to cancel out so that goes back to what it was. And we'll look at a couple other things. The minimum and maximum, which we discussed already, aren't filled in, but might be nice if you're going to make a safety data sheet out of this. What we can do, go up to the Start menu and calculate ingredient minimum concentrations. And it'll run through the same concentration calculations it did for the actual, but ask you if you want to reduce it by a certain percent. So you make this whatever you, pretty much what you want. So let's make it 3%. Say adjust and continue, and there we get values that are a little bit lower than the actual concentration. Let's do the same thing with the max. And let's do 3% above now. So now, for example, for diesel fuel, you could put on your SDS 41% to 44%, right? So you weren't telling them that you were putting in exactly 42.4%. It's just a way of, protecting your trade secrets, I guess, in a way, by giving a range rather than the actual value. Okay, let's also look at printing. If you want to print a batch sheet, you go to the print button, say print batch sheet. I'm going to preview it on the screen and say OK. And we'll get something showing up on the screen in Document Writer. Calculate batch size, what it was, about 1,500 pounds. Prepare date, the size of the containers, we're using those 5-gallon pails. 25 is the calculated need. Here are the ingredients and the parts that we're using, and it also printed out some instructions that we had entered earlier, and it has a little place for when you print this out, the workers can take this onto the production floor and put a check mark there, an X when they finish working on it, put in the times, how much actual time they spent, who the person was, the supervisor, any comments they have. Now, if you print this out and it doesn't look right, the font looks funny, you may not have access to Arial Narrow font, which is what this printout uses, this form. So what you might do is check in your system font folder for Arial Narrow. If you've got Windows 10, there was some sort of a problem where, I think it was Windows 10, where they just didn't have access. So even though Arial Narrow was there, they couldn't, the system for some reason wasn't accessing it. So you can download that font again. Just do a Google search for Arial Narrow font and then download it and put it in the system font folder and then try printing again. Okay, so if I actually print this, let me do print, and I'm going to make it a PDF, and I'm going to put it on the desktop. Excuse me. So where's my desktop? There's my desktop. Save it. And actually, I made this already in a previous try on this video. I apologize. So I'm going to replace it and close this. I just want to show you that, like, when you get it back with markups from the workers after the batch is done, you might want to put that back into your record here as an attachment. So, I mean, you can attach general forms here, although I tend to use this thing more for like analytical reports. Up here in the Start menu, though, there's also a way to attach a batch sheet. You see that? So I'm going to attach it that way. Proceed. Excuse me. And on my desktop, I'm going to find that item. We just called it preview. And it says it's been attached. And now, if you look over here, the surround, which had been, I think it was blue, is now green. It's now orange. And that just tells you that there's a batch sheet attached. And if you want to get it in the future, you can just say retrieve attached batch sheet, or remove it if you want, or show it. Those are the options. But you have access to it, basically. All right. I also want to show you labels while we're at it. You see there's these tabs: items, instructions, evaluation for analyses. notebook for you to take notes on what's happened, put in pictures, and then the label. So I'm going to build a label. We just have a really basic label here, but as situations dictate, if you need to have something and you request it from us, or we decide to make a fancier label, we might add things to this build button. Right now, though, it's just a basic label that lists the ingredients and includes your logo. This is the logo that you may have put in from your system preferences. You see that logo is what's being printed out here. All right, and then from here, you can just print it, or you can save it to disk, as a PDF file if you want. Actually, if you want to save it as a PDF file, what you would do is you would print it rather than, and you print it to disk and use your PDF driver. Okay. That's all I wanted to cover on this particular form, this particular video. Maybe I'll show you one other thing. I'm going to now press the Done button. So we've made changes. It's going to ask if, since every batch has to be linked to a record in the substances section, and so it's asking now if you want to save just the batch, if you want to save the batch and update the substance, or I have the option of canceling here to remain where we are, okay, without saving anything. And then you can look and see what the details that it's proposing to do. So it's going to create new components, because when we first made this record, it was at the very beginning and had nothing. So it's going to add these ingredients to the substance record, and it's also going to enter their concentrations. But I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to cancel because we're just playing around here, if you'll excuse my expression. That's it for this video, and I'll probably have another one coming up. Thank you.